I begin? Okay, I guess we have one, there's one announcement.
For those of you who know about persimmons, I brought some very ripe persimmons to the class with a couple of containers just in case. So they're available to anybody who likes them.
And they're good for making persimmon bread.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
My wife's recipe.
Okay. Is that what? Yes. Okay, everyone, good morning. So I want to actually combine a little bit of current events with going to India today because Israel did something very interesting several weeks ago. So I want to read you an article from the Jerusalem Post. India's B'nai Menashe community set for historic homecoming in Israel. This was November 23rd, so just a couple weeks ago. With this resolution, Israel has stated clearly, we are responsible for all Jews, including those whose journeys were interrupted by the tides of exile. A journey that began more than 2,700 years ago may at last be coming to a dramatic end. This past Sunday, 3 weeks ago, the Israeli government announced that it had approved a comprehensive plan to bring all the remaining 6,000 members of the B'nai Menashe community of India on Aliyah by 2030. For some people, this might be just another entry in their newsfeed. But for anyone who believes in the promise of Jewish destiny, the vision proclaimed by the prophets and carried by the exiled over thousands of years, this is nothing less than a watershed moment. The B'nai Menashe are descendants of the tribe of Manasseh, one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel exiled by the Assyrian Empire in 722 BCE toward the end of the First Temple era. Despite being cut off from the rest of the Jewish population for so long, the B'nai Menashe remain dedicated to their heritage, stubbornly clinging to the faith of their forefathers. They observed the Sabbath and kept kosher, celebrated the Jewish festivals, practiced the sacrificial rites, and even argued a lot among themselves, just as Jews have done since time immemorial. Centuries ago, they settled in what is now northeastern India, with the overwhelming majority of them residing in the states of Manipur and Mizoram. But the B'nai Menashe never forgot who they are or where they came from, or where they would one day return. Against all odds, across continents and centuries, they preserved a memory. We were once part of Israel, and one day we will rejoin them. This week, Israel answered the call and responded, "Come home." Long before the modern state of Israel was reborn, the prophet Isaiah foresaw a time when the most distant remnants of our people would be gathered to their ancestral homeland. This is a quotation from Isaiah. "Fear not, for I am with you," God declares. "I will bring your descendants from the east and gather you from the west." That's Isaiah 43. Isaiah 43, just so we have a little bit of a sense, is Deutero-Isaiah. He is writing during the Babylonian exile. If anyone ever doubted those verses, the Bnei Menashe have proven otherwise. They are literally descendants of Israel from the east, a people whose very existence attests that Jewish history is a tapestry far wider than we commonly imagine. The first to connect with the Bnei Menashe was Rabbi Eliyahu Avichail, who took up their cause in the late 1980s with passion and determination. More than 2 decades ago, I followed in his footsteps and founded Shavei Yisrael. This is an organization that brings displaced Jews back to Israel. With God's help, and as a result of our efforts, there are now 5,000 Bnei Menashe living in the Jewish state, anxiously awaiting the aliyah of the rest of the community. During my numerous trips to India, I have met countless Bnei Menashe men and women, young and old. I have prayed with them and wept with them, danced with them in joy to celebrate Shabbat, and seen the longing in their eyes for a far-off place called Zion. I have been to remote villages where homemade Hebrew signs adorned the walls of the synagogue, which echoed with the sounds of prayer 3 times each day. And I have seen their children recite the Rambam's 13 principles of faith from memory. The Bnei Menashe's yearning is neither political nor economic. It is not opportunistic or materialistic. It is something spiritual, primal, and ancient. Susie, I'm sorry, this is the first time I've ever complained about this, but the wind, it is just blowing right. No, I've already asked. Yeah, but, okay. I might have to move. Well, let's see. The decision announced this week by the Israeli government is therefore not merely another immigration plan. It is the answer to thousands of whispered prayers down through the centuries, the culmination of generations of faithfulness. It is the fulfillment of the divine promise conveyed by the prophet Amos. I will bring back the captivity of my people Israel, and they shall be planted on their land and shall never be uprooted. Let's see. Credit is due to Netanyahu. Okay, I think that's... What happened this week is a miracle of biblical proportions, with prophecy fulfilled through policy. If we listen closely, we can almost hear the echo of God's promise. For 2,700 years, the Bnei Menashe have sung of Zion, but by 2030, they will at last sing in Zion. Okay. So I'll get to that in just a sec. So we're going to talk about Jews in India today. And if we're going to talk about Jews in India, we have to talk about a number of different Jewish groups, because there's not just Jews in India. There are various Jews from various time periods who came to various cities. So I have listed all the different Jewish groups here on the left. All of them except for the last, Bnei Ephraim, have been recognized by Israel as Jews. And many of them have already emigrated to Israel. So let's start with the Cochin Jews. Cochin Jews, their community was down here in the city of Kochi in the very, very, very south of India. And best that anyone can tell, they are very ancient, their community is very ancient, and they probably came over with King Solomon's merchants. So when did King Solomon live? Really good, Lana. So Lana says 950. Good. I like that number as a good round number. When did King David live? 1000. So probably David lived a good long life he's always portrayed as being pretty old. So Solomon maybe was more like 930, something like that. But 950, real easy number for us to remember. In 20 years, that far back doesn't make a difference, right? So 950 is Solomon. That gives us a good idea. So Solomon's temple is destroyed when? 586. Very good. So Solomon's reign is pretty long, but Solomon, you'll recall, was very interested in enlarging David's kingdom. He did a lot of building. He increased the army. He taxed the people out of control. And so part of all these building projects were going out to various places and getting building materials. And so there were a number of merchants who went out all over the place, so it would not be at all unreasonable to think that there were Jewish merchants who went along at that time, and they went to India to get various materials, and they said, you know what, let's stay here. Or, for whatever reason, they had to stay there. We're going to find out in a second that there were some who were shipwrecked. And so that's how they ended up getting there. If we look at the Paradesi Jews, they live in a city called Kerala, and they came over in the 16th century. So the 16th century is about what years? 1500s, very good. What happened right around the 1500s? Everything. Good answer. Great answer. Okay, specifically Jewish? The expulsion from Spain. That's the big event. Another really important thing in the 1500s was the Kabbalah. That was huge, huge. But the expulsion from Spain. So many of these Jews came over after the expulsion from Spain. They were very, they became very entrenched in the diamond industry. Seems like we Jews were in the diamond industry everywhere. And one thing that was really important for them, because they were merchants, the fact that they could speak other languages, especially Spanish, was very, very important. So the language was very useful. You'll recall that during the Middle Ages, right, 16th century, we're in the Renaissance, Jews were living both in Muslim lands and in Christian lands. And Jews were very important to the rulers of countries in both areas, because the Christian merchants would not speak to the Muslim merchants, and the Muslim merchants would not speak to the Christian merchants. But the Jews could speak to each other, and they could facilitate trade back and forth. So the Jews were very, very useful. The next group were the Baghdadi Jews, who came from what is now the country of Iraq. And they settled mostly in Mumbai, Bombay, and Kolkata, Calcutta. So you'll see Mumbai there, Kolkata there. They came from what is now the country of Iraq in the 18th century, seeking better economic opportunities. Yes? Good. So the question is, they must have, or the statement, they must have intermarried a lot with the local population, because you have known a number of Indian Jews and their skin is very dark. And they are members of Adat Ariel. So depending on which group you belong to. So for instance, right now we're talking about Baghdadi Jews. Baghdadi Jews were actually on the lighter side. And the Paradesi Jews that we just talked about, who came over during the Spanish Inquisition, very light-skinned, very light-skinned. So it would depend which group they belonged to, and yes, there was definitely intermarriage, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. Your point is very good. They came over the Baghdadi Jews came over in the 18th century. They wanted to pursue economic opportunities, trading. They were involved in cotton and tobacco, and they retained very much their Sephardic heritage. And notice that they settled in the cities at the very edges of the country to facilitate trade, because Mumbai, Bombay, right? Huge, huge city in India. And so there was a lot of trade being done. Same with Calcutta. I mean, we know these two names, better than just about any other cities in India. Then we have Bnei Yisrael, who were a very ancient population as well, and they trace their lineage fleeing from Antiochus Epiphanes IV. Who is Antiochus or Antiochus? Who is Antiochus Epiphanes IV? Oh, Hanukkah, yes, very, very timely for us. So you will, brief history excursion, because we have the time today. So when Alexander the Great dies, he had amassed a huge empire all throughout the ancient East. And when he died very young, 33. When he died, his empire was split up among his 5 generals. 3 of his 5 generals were kind of unimportant. 2 of his 5 generals were really important, Ptolemy and Seleucus. Basically, Ptolemy got the west, Seleucus got the east. Israel, of course, was right in the middle. Ptolemy had it, but Seleucus wanted it. Everybody wants Israel. Why does everyone want Israel? Because if you think about it, it's right at the crossroads. You want to go north, the quickest way is through Israel. You want to go south, the quickest way is through Israel. You want to go down, through Israel. Go up, through Israel. Everything goes through Israel. So everybody wants it. Including the Mediterranean, yes. So Seleucus wanted it, and Ptolemy had it. Ptolemy also had Egypt. So, which is why you had a number of pharaohs who were Greek. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh, the one we all know about with Mark Antony, she was Greek. She was not Egyptian. And her predecessors were all Greek. They were the Ptolemaic pharaohs. All right. So Seleucus dies, obviously. Ptolemy dies. But their lineage lives on. Antiochus Epiphanes IV is a Seleucid ruler, meaning he was the leader of the Greek Syrians. So think Syria on the east, Egypt on the west, and you'll get Seleucus and Ptolemy. And we know our story from Hanukkah. The Seleucids invade Israel. They take the temple. The Maccabees rise up, and they take the temple back, and we have our story of Hanukkah. It's important to remember when the Maccabees defeat the Seleucids and take the temple back, they didn't win the war. They did not win the war. This was the Greek-Syrian army was huge. The Maccabees were tiny, tiny, tiny. What did the Maccabees do? They won a really significant little victory in the scope of the big war. They took the Temple Mount back. Okay, for us, very big deal. Very big deal. We got our temple back. In the grand scheme of the war, teeny little nothing, right? Okay. Ultimately, the Maccabees and the Israelites are going to win against the Greek Syrians. That's going to take them another 100 years. But our little story is a teeny tiny little victory, but for us it was big. And we need to keep it big for us. This is our story. And of course, as you know, the rabbis were very, very uncomfortable. We didn't have any holidays celebrating a military victory, so the rabbis added on to the story. And all of a sudden, when the Maccabees went in to take the temple back, they found a little bottle of oil. It was only enough for one day, but it lasted for 8 days, and this is what we teach our children. But this is an addition, an invention by the rabbis to make the holiday about God, not about the military victory. Because we don't have any holidays that celebrate military victory. The rabbi's agenda is always glorify God, glorify God, glorify God, no matter what we're doing. So everything has to glorify God. Okay. So the Maccabees get the temple back, and and so, as I was saying, that the Bnei Yisrael fled after Antiochus Epiphanes IV invaded. And the story of the Bnei Yisrael is that 14 Jews were shipwrecked after they fled. And from these 14 Jews, the entire community descends. The entire modern community of Bnei Yisrael descends. That's their story anyway. I'm trying to think if there's enough genetic diversity in 14 people to create an entire community, but
That particular story is a great biblical story. It shows that these 14, a great number, remain faithful to their forefathers.
that out of these 14, a great number remained faithful to their forefathers. Very good. They were involved mostly with oil pressing and other agricultural pursuits, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Okay, and then we have the Bnei Menashe, which we just spoke about here. The Bnei Menashe lived mostly up in the northwest. Oh, Menashe. Sorry, you are right. Northeast. I'm looking here and I see Bnei, and you are right, Lana. In the northeast. They trace their lineage back to a figure that they call Manmassi, and who they say corresponds to Manasseh. Manmassi, Manasseh. So how? let's backtrack for 1 second here, and let's understand that when David's kingdom divides, when Solomon's kingdom divides, we have the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. 10 of the tribes lived in the northern kingdom. 2 of the tribes, Judah, which was the largest tribe of all, and Benjamin, which was a little tribe. Judah and Benjamin were in the south. Simeon was there for a little bit too until it got swallowed up. But Judah and Benjamin in the south, everybody else in the north. When the Assyrians go through and trample the northern kingdom and take it in what year, Lana? You're going to guess around 600. In 721. 721, Sargon II overruns Samaria, and the northern kingdom is taken by the Assyrians. When the Assyrians take the northern kingdom in 721, they exile the 10 tribes of Israel who are in the north. They throw them out. This is how we get the 10 lost tribes. Nobody knows where they went. They were thrown out, and that's the last we heard of them. So this group is claiming we are the descendants of the tribe of Manasseh. When our ancestors were thrown out, they made their way to India, and here we are today. And there is some DNA evidence that they are they retain some loose connections to the Middle East. They don't, it's not like you have the Kohen gene in the Uganda tribes or something like that. It's some loose connection genetically to some Middle Eastern genes. However, they were recognized in 2005, so very recently, they were recognized as Jews. Now, so Israel has this situation, as you well know. We have the Ethiopian Jewish population, right? And so there are a number of groups that have claimed Jewish lineage and Jewish blood. And Israel has recognized some, but not all. There is one other tribe, the B'nai Ephraim, who are sometimes called Telugu Jews because they speak a language called Telugu. T-E-L-U-G-U, Telugu. They have not been recognized by Israel. They claim they are descendants of the tribe of Ephraim. So you have Manasseh and Ephraim, right? They claim they are descendants of the tribe of Ephraim, but that has not been substantiated. Israel has not recognized them. And there have been claims by others that they're just doing it to get out of poverty in India. They want to go to a first world nation. They want to go to Israel because it's a better life there.
You answered the question. I wanted to know where they were.
You wanted to know where they were, yes. The B'nai Ephraim are down here in the southeast. As I said, there have been a number of rabbis who have visited them over the years to check out their story. And the rabbis have all said, nah, I don't think so. I don't think so. You know, some of them have loose connections, like they take Saturdays off from work, or they have some kind of marriage rituals that kind of sort of resemble Jewish customs, or things like that. About the B'nai Menashe, he read a long time ago. The community, when there were stressful times, they would gather in the evening,
and they would all say essentially, we are descendants of Menashe, and no harm will come to us. It was
the community would bond together and repeat for themselves that we are the descendants of Menashe. Yeah. So in 1947, there was great turmoil in India. Anybody think of what could have happened in 1947? Good, Lana. The split? That's right. The split between India and Pakistan.
it started with the Indian Revolution against the British. Right?
Correct.
But unfortunately, the whole Indo-Pakistani empire of the Brits, you had India in the south, and you had Muslim.
Right. So it started with problems with Great Britain, and then what the end result was that India and Pakistan split, and so there was a great deal of anti-Semitism in India at the time. In India, right as of today, you have approximately 1.1 billion Muslims and 220 million Muslims. No, 1.1 billion Hindus. Oh, did I say Muslims? Yes. Sorry. I'm old. 1.1 billion Hindus and 220 million Muslims. So let's see, what is that? The Muslim population is about 1/5. Is that right? 220 million to 1 billion? Yeah, it's about 1/5, 5 to 1. There are 5 times more Hindus than there are Muslims. But 220 million Muslims is a pretty significant population. Oh, at the moment, good guess, 6,000. At the moment, there are a little bit less than 5,000 Jews in all of India, and they are in Mumbai. Now, I'm sure they're like, you know, a couple of Jews here, a couple of Jews there. But in terms of a population center, there's about 5,000 left, and they are members of mostly B'nai Israel. B'nai Yisrael. Do you know that for a lot of modern history, where do you think these Jews made their mark? Jewish doctors, maybe. Banking. No. Melinda? Bollywood. Films and films. The film industry has a lot of Jews and has had a lot of Jews over the last few decades. Isn't that great? But I mean, you say, Oh, of course. Of course. Of course. Of course. Cochin Jews today live in Israel. Correct. The only Jews, the only Indian Jews who are left really are B'nai Israel and B'nai Ephraim, if we're going to say that they are Jews. And this article that we just read said that Israel is bringing over the last group, the rest of the population of B'nai Menashe. Now, so we should think about for a second. So all of these Indian Jews have immigrated to Israel, starting in 1947 because of the turmoil in India. The Cochin Jews immigrated. In 48 and 52, many of the B'nai Israel immigrated, and their largest population is in Beersheba right now. And they are involved in the they're supportive of the Israeli government, especially for a strong defense within Israel. And as we just said, November 23rd, just a few weeks ago, B'nai Menashe has been recognized, and there is a plan to bring the last remnants of that population over. There are now 70,000 Indian Jews who live in Israel. 70,000 Jews from India, from all these various groups who live in Israel. The Cochin Jews, who came over in 1947, are very involved in the Moshavim, the agricultural movements within Israel. And a lot of the Jews that Netanyahu has approved bringing over are going to be settled in the north. And Netanyahu has said it's for security and reasons, and he said it was practical and security reasons. How do you figure? I feel because the north is a weak point in the defense of Israel. The government of Israel needs people in the north. Right. Right. So the population centers in Israel are where? Certainly Jerusalem, which is right in the center. Tel Aviv, which is where? South or north? Middle. Middle-ish, southish, middle-ish. The only one in the north that's really a population center is Haifa, right? The other thing about the north is that the Galilee has mostly Arab villages. A minority of Jews in the north. And you have Druze in the north, right?
Didn't they just take all of the Jewish settlements that were in the north and evacuate them? During the war. Yeah, during the war.
During the war.
During this war. So why did they just move them back? Why do they need?
Well, the large Jewish population centers are in the middle and in the south, or in the middle, basically. The south is desert. The north has its own situations, but right in the middle.
But what I'm saying is the Jews that were there, it looks like they wanted to protect the Jews that were there.
It looks like they wanted to protect the Jews that were there, so they evacuated, right? So commingling, and I think Ziesel's right. They just want to beef up a Jewish presence in the north. Otherwise, you lose the north. Right, but you're saying, why don't they just put them back after they evacuated them.
It looks like, I'm sorry, it looks like they're protecting their like, white population.
A good. This is important. So take a deep breath. What's your name again? Susie says it looks like they're protecting their white population. Take a deep breath. What is the current status, condition of Indian Jews in Israel? Not good? Are they considered black Jews? They are definitely not considered on the same level as white Israelis. Definitely not. Definitely not. They are discriminated against. They moved there to find a much better life, and they didn't find a much better life. Certainly better than in India, but they are looked down upon, and they are not treated equally with white Israelis, for sure. Now, look, we don't want to say this about our people, but I'm sorry, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. The most persecuted people persecute others. Well, certainly the darker-skinned Indian Jews, as well as for sure the Ethiopian Jews, absolutely the Ethiopian Jews, who are even darker, are looked down upon. They are not given the same opportunities. Life is difficult for them. You don't think that's true? Why don't you think that's true? Okay, tell me about that. They didn't come with money and wealth. They didn't come with education. We have to populate the north. Right? So you're saying that they are not treated differently?
I don't think so, because when I went to Israel, I see there are doctors, there are lawyers, there are bus drivers,
They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're bus drivers. Okay.
Was it a shame for an Ashkenazic Jew to marry a Sephardic Jew?
Right. Well, for how long was it a shame for an Ashkenazic Jew to marry a Sephardic Jew? For an Ashkenazic Jew to marry somebody who wasn't Jewish? Yes. So I think the literature that I have read suggests that especially the Ethiopian Jews, but also the Indian Jews, are not treated. We will always have this problem because we'll always have immigrants coming. Now, one thing you could say, because you brought up a very good point, they're coming with no money and they're coming with no education. So, when we have immigrants come to this country with no money and no education, typically they are working in the lowest level jobs that one can have. They're picking vegetables, they're working as dishwashers, kudos to them for doing some of the hardest work that we have in this country, and they come in and they do it. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that we are discriminating against them. They don't have any skills, and they don't have any money, and they don't have any way out of it. It's all about education. They don't have that. By the same token, we all know there is definitely a predisposition among many in this country to look down upon those who come here with no education and no money as lower status and less than we are. All I'm saying, it's a reality everywhere. Yes.
The Irish
Of course. The Irish in New York, yes. And the Poles, sure. And the Catholic, yes, yes, yes. It is the history of this country. Say that again, Lana. The nature of the human being is that you want to be among your own. Yes. Right. Okay. All I'm saying, yes, Cecil.
Just wanted to point out, it happens everywhere, but in Israel, for instance, the European Jews felt themselves superior
Good.
to the Jews.
So Cecil says it happens everywhere, but in Israel, the European Jews felt that they were superior. That shouldn't be a surprise to us. I mean, it just shouldn't. It just shouldn't. As you know, it just shouldn't. When you are white, Anglo-Saxon, white, European, white, Jewish, there is a tendency to feel that you are here and the people of color and less education and less money are here. I'm not saying it's good, it's bad. I'm just saying it exists. That's all. I'm saying it exists. And say again? It exists since the world began, yes. And so all I'm saying is, sometimes we have a tendency, oh, Israel is so good, Jews are so good. We have our stuff too. And we do stuff that's not so great. And we have to own it. When you were a child, your parents' friends' children went to Israel in the 1940s. You thought it was a... Yeah, yeah. Why did you think it was so bad that they let their children go to Israel?
I don't know what she's saying.
The Jewish community thought it was bad that they went to Israel? They couldn't understand why 18-year-olds would go to Israel? Ah, okay. So in the early 1940s, Israel wasn't at all what it was. So they went there to live. Ah, okay, I didn't understand. So you're saying that in the 1940s, you had neighbors whose children went to live in Israel. And the Jewish community here thought, oh, what are they doing? What a bad thing. What's in Israel? And the point was that certainly Israel in the 1930s and 40s didn't look anything like what Israel does now. Israel is a model in so many ways to the world. But it wasn't so in the 1930s and 1940s at all. It was still growing, shall we say. It hadn't achieved what it achieves now. All right, so my only point was that these Indian Jews who thought and who think, the ones who are leaving, think that moving to Israel is going to be this great, wonderful situation for them, hasn't quite turned out that way. There's a lot of discrimination against the Ethiopian Jews. They've had a very difficult time. Their synagogue is a mess? You were ashamed? It was like a hovel. There are 13 synagogues in Mumbai and 10 in Kolkata, and there are a number of smaller numbers throughout India. When I tried to research how many synagogues are there in India, they said between 15 and 1,500. And I'm like, okay, that's a lot of territory. Some of these synagogues are very ancient and are used for something else now, but in terms of active synagogues in the two large cities, there's 15 in Mumbai and 10 in Calcutta, and they are used by the B'nai Yisrael because those are the only Jews really who are left. And certainly after the last B'nai Menashe leave, then they will be the last Jews in India.
You said that in 1947 that there a lot of Indian Jews left.
You said that in 1947, a lot of Indian Jews left. A lot of B'nai Yisrael left, yes.
And you said the reason why
Anti-Semitism.
anti-Semitism. Why? I mean, what was happening at that point in time?
Good. So what was happening at that point in time? So we just talked about the India split, right? And Pakistan was created. Israel was becoming a state. So why would there have been anti-Semitism in India?
My guess would be that, purely a guess, but because there was such a population exchange, and that's a difficult thing for anybody to be going through, they'd be more angry at what's going on and take it out on the Jews.
But I think that's very true. You also remember that when the split happens and Pakistan is created, you've got a lot of Muslims now who are moving, but who are also very, very what's the word? They are people of their life, but I'm saying they have become very enthusiastic about their religion, right? They now have Pakistan, and they have a whole country that is under Islam. And so there is a resurgence of pride in Islam, and so it would make sense that you have a time of war, a time of split, and a new Islamic country being created, and Islam being brought up to the forefront again, that you would have anti-Semitic sentiment.
It may sound weird,
It may sound weird,
but
perhaps to the Hindus.
Jews practicing the Jewish practice of religion is very similar to the Muslim practice.
It may seem weird, but it may be that the Jewish practice is similar to the Muslim. In other words, being monotheistic, Hinduism being a completely polytheistic religion.
My question actually was the anti-Semitism from the Hindus or from the Muslims?
My research said that it was pretty much from all over, but I think it was mostly Muslim. If you're leaving, you got to be selling a lot of stuff. Oh, that's interesting. I got to look that up a little bit. They may have felt that they were being taken advantage of by the Jews who were there. Okay, two more comments, and then I got to let you go.
Anti-Semitism is a worldwide illness.
Absolutely.
You got to remember,
Anti-Semitism is a worldwide illness, and you've got to remember
what happened prior to the current countries like India and Pakistan. The Brits had it.
right, what happened prior to the split. The Brits had it.
Israel and its problems with the Brits dated from the 20s and the 30s.
Israel and its problem with Great Britain started after the British Mandate, right? Okay.
And it
And it's quite conceivable.
And the hate that the Brits had against the Jews, it's very easy to hate somebody.
And perhaps there was some problems from Britain. Yes. Okay, wait, I got to do one more, and then I have to let you go because I've been disrespectful to Rabbi the last few weeks. Okay, go for it.
Just wanted to say that my sister-in-law's family is from Calcutta.
Your sister-in-law's family is from Calcutta.
Actually, that they were fairly wealthy.
They were fairly wealthy,
When the British were leaving,
and when the British were leaving,
it was like program. So they left. They went to London.
they went to London.
They had the British passport.
They had British passports,
Israel.
and they went to Israel, and now here.
There was a discrimination against.
Because there was discrimination, yes. Okay, last comment.
Something that just popped in my head because I forgot totally about it. During the 30s and 40s, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem was going to Arab lands to foment anti-Semitism through that, and that would have included the Muslims in India. So that's probably a very, and then you have 47, the beginnings of Israel.
I'll do a little more research this coming week on, do we have class next week? Yes. Okay, I'll do a little more research next week about the anti-Semitism situation. I'll have some better answers for you. Have a great week, everyone.
Ernie's persimmon tree has very beautiful persimmons on it, and they're sitting there for you to take home. So today we are not doing pirates. Today we are doing Hanukkah.
I had a brilliant idea. In the shower this morning.
Tell me.
We can make name tags for everybody who made a reservation. So we'll know exactly who they are. So they can sit at the tables. And other people can sit. I'm not sure we're going to put up a fifth table because 5 tables fit. But I still don't think that people who don't make reservations should eat all the spoons.
Right.
And if we have name tags, that will do, just say, your mom waiting, it's a way of doing it.
Yeah, so because you're concerned about the amount of food?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's only fair. And
Sign up.
yeah, I have 40 reservations.
I'll bring all the teapots.
How many teapots?
I have a lot. I have a collection of teapots.
I'm worried about them getting broken.
I'm not going to bring one like
Value.
most valuable.
Yeah.
But they're cute. You can either just use them as something on the wall.
That's exactly what we're
Yeah, I don't think that they'll be broken. They're not going to be actually holding.
Yeah. No.
So it's fine.
Okay.
I'm
So,
willing to take the chance.
do you have 10?
For 10?
Well, are one on each table or
Yeah.
5?
I probably have 7 or 8.
Okay,
I'm not
well,
sure
the
it's
most
10.
tables will have is 5. So,
And you want a couple for where the food is going to be, just to make it prettier on the
not
serving
necessarily.
table?
Not necessarily.
All right, well, I will just bring them. We'll figure out.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to Escamate because she said something about setting up on Friday. So,
I think that that's a better idea.
yeah, of course.
Than everybody running around.
Oh, yeah. Because we do have to put the food on plates and in front of the
Do you
president.
have enough tea?
I brought a
We've
whole
been
basket.
using the tea here and
Well, we still have a partial box of what you bought. And I just brought a basket of stuff I've had.
different kinds of tea.
Oh my gosh, and I so want to get rid of it because nobody drinks it. So I'm hoping that people will enjoy. They're all different flavors.
Get additional cookies, is that what you got?
Oh,
Somebody did?
no.
What was that discussion?
Well, we have scones that we make, and or is making. And I found this box.
Elena's making them?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we need to really highlight it.
Oh, yeah. She's making smaller ones now, so that it will go farther. I would say Elaine's kitchen is more kosher than this kitchen. But the other thing, I found this box of slices at Ralph's Kosher. And there's 3 different kinds, and they're 15 in a box. There's chocolate. No, no, it's cookies or well, they're slices is what it's called. And there's a 7-layer. There's a chocolate and a lemon. And if we cut them in half, and we can, I will either get 2 boxes of 3, so we would have 60 of those and put them in little cupcake cakes. That was my idea. Yeah, because it is advertised as cake and anyway, so I mean people will have come to kids, and we're not serving during Helen's performance. People will have come. I mean, she's really put her heart and soul. And I don't want any distraction.
Yes, she did. She has.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure it'll be lovely.
I hope so.
Okay, everybody. Good morning. The schmoozing time is now at an end. I'm very happy to see you all. I thought that it might be fun today, since Hanukkah is starting very shortly, for us to do some really good deep dive learning about Hanukkah. So that's what we're going to do today, and I hope that you will enjoy it. I have, instead of just doing this from me, I did print all of the things that we're going to be talking about today, and I will pass those out. And we'll be able to get started on learning together. And if you are a person who wants to read part of the text that we are doing, you'll have every opportunity to do that. But I would like to start with something personal after we do the bracha. First is the bracha. Yes. Right. Okay. Everybody get ready so that we can say the blessing for learning. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And you certainly have already done that the first hour that you've been together, and we'll be doing that together now. But I have a couple of questions. Does anybody here have a childhood memory of your Hanukkah experiences?
I have a funny one.
Okay, so did you want to share?
Oh, okay.
Well, let's share with a mic, because it gets very unwieldy for me to repeat 3 words at a time or something, right?
So I have many Hanukkah
Pick one.
memories, but okay, is that better? Okay, but we used to celebrate Hanukkah with my uncle and his family, and so I had asked my parents, told my parents that I wanted a visible woman. It was a toy. It was like a model that you put together and had all the different. You could see.
You could see the inside.
You could see the inside, and it was expensive, so I didn't know if I was gonna get it. But so we were at my uncle's house, and my cousin got one, a visible woman, and I just started to cry hysterically. So. Because I had wanted it, and it hadn't been like a gift that I had gotten already. But we lit the menorah every night and said the blessings, and it was just a good time to be together with the family, and also to spend time with my cousins.
Did you ever get the?
Yes, I did. It was like, you know. It was.
I was sitting
But
on pins and needles.
I know. I mean, and I wasn't a baby then. It was like maybe 10 or 11 years old.
Okay, we'll move on. We'll do two more reflections. I know I saw several hands. Just 1 second. And there was somebody else who had a, so come on down.
So in my family, my mother had well, 2 sisters and a brother living here. And so every year we were at somebody's house for a big family Hanukkah party. And my mom and her sisters would make the latkes. And it was just such a warm family experience. The thing in my family, my mother had started a business that was called the Hebrew Decorations Company. And she manufactured all kinds of decorations. And I swear my mother invented the Happy Hanukkah streamer. And all this stuff was designed by her and then manufactured. And originally, things were silk screened with glitter. All that went on in our living room. And it was huge. So we were repackaging all kinds of Hanukkah decorations for months. And it was, I have some of those still that I still use.
Oh, that's
to this
nice.
day.
Thank you. Okay, brief. No, very brief.
I grew up in the most secular of homes. We had a Christmas tree and Easter baskets. I didn't know anything about Hanukkah. We moved to a Jewish neighborhood, Fairfax, and that was cultural shock. So in 6th grade, the teacher's having us sing, "Oh Hanukkah, come light the menorah." What's Hanukkah? What's a menorah? Oh, I have a little dreidel. I made it out of clay. What's a dreidel?
Wow. Well, we know that you know what they are now, so bravo to you. Okay, so this is what I want to start with, and I'm going to give them to you now. Hold on, I'm trying to get my copies. Can you pass them around, please? This is the abbreviated.
I'll take this side, you take that side.
This is the abbreviated part. Wait, you need to take a few more. I'm just heavy on my hands today.
I'm happy, yeah.
There we go. This is the abbreviated section of what we're going to talk about more deeply, but I thought that it would be fun for you to be involved in this as we get ready to dig deeper. You must be cold, Melinda. Are you cold? Is it? So what we have here are 2 pages of information back to back for you. One, I don't have any more. People who are together will need to share. Please share. She's got some more. Okay. All right. Let's get started. What page do you have? You should be looking at the page that says, according to the Apocrypha. Okay. Good. So what's the Apocrypha? What's Apocrypha? Apocrypha. They are additional writings, yes. Pardon? They were not canonized. So most of everything that is written about Hanukkah does not, well, none of it shows up in Torah. None of it shows up in Tanakh. So it's not in the prophets, it's not in the writings, none of that. It missed it by that much. So it was put in this apocryphal material, which then was turned into something canonized, meaning it became a holy text by the Catholics. So one of the reasons that we still have all of the books of the Maccabees has nothing to do with us. And everything to do with that different culture, except for the fact that the rabbis of the Talmud did know about Hanukkah, and we're going to take a look both at the apocryphal material today, the ones that were historically accurate for Hanukkah, and we're also going to take a look at what showed up in the Talmud, okay? So we're starting with the apocryphal material, and we're going to do more of that. I just wanted to give you a taste of it. So let's see. Stand up and read the first paragraph. Or don't stand up and read the first
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Why is Hanukkah celebrated for 8 days? Is the question that's coming up in this apocryphal material. We'll have something else later on. So Judah.
Judah said to his brothers, "The enemy has been defeated. Let us clean the temple and dedicate it." On the 20th day of the 9th month, which is also called Kislev, they offered sacrifices upon the new altar which they had built. Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising God, and so they celebrated the dedication of the altar for 8 days, happily offering sacrifices. Judah and his brothers ordered that the dedication of the altar be remembered each year by celebrating it for 8 days.
Okay? Keep that in mind. Can you read Judah Maccabee and his followers?
Judah Maccabee and his followers retook the temple and the city of Jerusalem. They threw out the altars that the heathens had built. They cleaned the temple and built a new altar. Now, for the first time in 2 years, a sacrifice was offered in the temple. Incense was brought forth, lights were kindled, and the 2 loaves of bread were placed on the table. And from the 25th day of Kislev, for 8 days, rejoicing followed, just as they had done a short time earlier during the observance of the Sukkot holiday.
Okay, so thank you. I'll get the mic back. So we're going to read more. One of them, the first one, comes from the book of Maccabees, chapter 4. The second is the book of Maccabees, chapter 10. And that's the second book and the first book of Maccabees. There's more than 2 books of the Maccabees. So what do we not have here? We got no oil. We got no candles, right? All of that. What do we have? We have restoration of the temple that was destroyed. That's very important. We have the people coming back and cleansing it and turning it holy again. That's important. Now let's think about where we're going to find out about the candles. Lights were kindled. Lights were kindled. Ain't got no Hanukkah here. None. None. So we have to take a different pathway for that. But we have to keep in mind that the different pathway we're going to look at is not happening in the time of the restoration of the temple. Okay? All right. So now, and I said we'll be doing a little bit more information, but now turn your side of the page to according to the Talmud and the Midrash. So let's just review. Talmud is is rabbinic literature. So is Midrash, but Midrash are legends. They were things that, one second, they were things that were written in order to make people understand better what our laws were, what our traditions were. That's what Midrash is. Yes?
I found it interesting that it's on the 25th day of Kislev.
25th day of Kislev.
Connects it to Christianity.
Oh, the 25th of December? No. Good one, but no. Just because the Catholic Church saved the books of Maccabees in the Apocrypha material, it still has no link. There's not a link between this history and between the other history. So now let's go Talmud and Midrash. So from the Midrash is the first one, the volume called Pesikta Rabbati. And somebody, do you want to read this one? Of course you do. You're so excited about it. Why are the lights kindled on Hanukkah?
Why are lights kindled on Hanukkah? The reason is that when the sons of Mattathias, the high priest, defeated the Syrian Greeks, they entered the temple and found 8 iron spears. They stuck them in the earth and kindled a light in each one.
Aha! It's an old version. It's a very old version. So this is early, Pesikta Rabbati is very early Midrashic material. Spears are I'm not sure whether it was either the Hasmoneans, the people who were coming back to fix the temple, or whether that was the last of the swords that were sent by the enemy. So I think that that's what it is, because then they made use of the enemy's weapons by kindling light, by like using them as a torch. Torch. Okay. So they're kind of saying that's what they say exactly. They stuck them in the earth and kindled a light in each one. So, yes, Judy.
So what year is this from?
I'm not exactly sure. I will look it up. But these are first century, approximately, yeah. So let's go back now from the Talmud. Now this is from the Talmud. Why is Hanukkah observed for 8 days? Because in the days of Greek domination of Palestine, the Hasmoneans recaptured the temple and rebuilt the altar. They redid it with fresh cement and replaced the serving vessels that had been destroyed. This task took them 8 days to accomplish. And then here the Talmud repeats the story of the 8 iron spears found in the Midrash. That's what we've got so far. Now, the last paragraph from the Talmud, Shabbat 21b.
When the Syrian Greeks captured the temple, they spoiled all the jugs of oil that the high priest had prepared for the lighting of the temple menorah. The temple menorah had 7 branches. They searched and finally found one small jug that still had the seal of the high priest on it and had not been opened by the Greeks. There was only enough oil in it to keep the menorah burning for 1 day, but a miracle happened. The menorah kept on burning for 8 days. On the following year, it was decided to observe these 8 days once again as festive days in which songs of praise and thankfulness were to be sung.
And there we have it. But there we have it much later than the actual events happened. We also only have it in the Talmud. Who wrote the Talmud? Rabbis. Rabbis wrote the Talmud. If you were to take a look at the books of Maccabees, and we did take a very brief look, and we'll take another look in a more depth way in a moment, what did the Apocrypha focus on? What? Sacrifice when they came back, yes.
The victory.
But victory through a battle. The rabbis of the Talmud did not want that to be what everybody thought about Hanukkah. The rabbis of the Talmud were not interested in things having to do with war or even victory, for the most part. They were interested in the godly aspect of the experience. And so, most probably, since the spears are a midrash, and what did I say a midrash was? A legend, right? So, probably the spears idea in the midrash and the thing that became a Chanukiah that now has 8 candles and a shamash, those were much later. So when we all grew up learning about the story of Hanukkah, or later, learning about the story of Hanukkah, who here learned about the kindling of the candles because the oil miraculously appeared for 8 days? All of us. But that isn't the whole story. No. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to share the first book of Maccabees with you. I didn't think that was necessary to do the whole thing, and so I'm going to share with you what that first book of Maccabees is. Just a minute, Melinda. And then I'm going to pass out additional information, and we will take a wider look about Hanukkah. So what about what they mentioned before we move on to that? What about what they mentioned of the number of days that they actually observed Hanukkah? It's not the miraculous oil. What was it? Sukkot. So now let me tell you why they played it off of Sukkot. When the Hasmoneans started to have to experience the destruction of the temple and everything that they were used to, it was around the time of Sukkot, which meant that the people didn't get to observe the holiday of Sukkot. So when the freedom came and the rebuilding came, they thought that it was the right thing to do to backtrack and to create this new holiday that would resonate to how we celebrated Sukkot. So we didn't go out into booths. We went into the newly created temple, right? So that's different. But they wanted to make sure that the symbol that they gave is we will not be stopped. We didn't get to experience this holiday, but we will do it now in the best way that we can. And that's how we ended up with 8 days of Hanukkah. When Solomon finished building the temple,
Yeah, they
they
celebrate
celebrated
8
for 8
days.
days. Yes. Okay, so let's move on, and I'll tell you a little bit about what was going on in the first book of Maccabees. Yes, Melinda. Pardon? That comes up a little bit more in rabbinic literature, and we're going to deal with that in just a minute as well. So, first of book of Maccabees, I'm gonna run through it. After Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came from the land of Kittim, had defeated Darius, king of the Persians and the Medes. Darius was nice. He was the king who wanted the Jews to be able to come back, King Darius. The Persians and the Medes, he succeeded him as king. He had previously become king of Greece. So they defeated the nice guy and put not nice guy in the role. He fought many battles, conquered strongholds, and put to death the kings of the earth. He advanced to the ends of the earth and plundered many nations. And when the earth became quiet before him, he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. This is Alexander, I hate to say, son of Philip the Macedonian. He gathered a very strong army and ruled over countries, nations, princes, and they became vassals to him. After this, he felt sick and saw that he was dying, so he summoned his most honored officers who had been brought up with him from youth and divided his kingdom among them while he was still alive, and then he died. Then his officers began to rule, each in his own place. So it wasn't that Alexander was a terrible king. It was that he selected terrible people under him because they each wanted to rule. They all put on crowns after his death, and so did their sons after them for many years, and they caused many evils on the earth. From them came a sinful root, Antiochus Epiphanes. Dun dun dun! Son of Antiochus the king, he had been a hostage in Rome. He began to reign in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days, lawless men came forth from Israel and misled many, saying, "Let us go and make a covenant with the Gentiles around us, for since we separated from them, many evils have come upon us." Now, we're not talking Gentiles meaning Christians. We're talking about Gentiles meaning Antiochus and the people who were Syrian. This proposal pleased them, and some of the people eagerly went to the king. He authorized them to observe the ordinances of the Gentiles, so they built a gymnasium in Jerusalem, according to the Gentile custom, and removed the marks of circumcision and abandoned the Holy Covenant. Syrian Greeks. The Greeks did that a lot because they had their young men be involved in sports and combat without clothes on. And so the Jewish men couldn't do that because it was obvious. So what happened when Antiochus became the king and started to lure all these Jews into the Syrian Greek way of life, they then joined the Gentiles and sold themselves to do evil and had what I would imagine would be very painful surgeries. When Antiochus saw that his kingdom was established, he determined to become king of the land of Egypt, that he might reign over both kingdoms. He invaded Egypt with a strong force with chariots and elephants and cavalry. He engaged Ptolemy, king of Egypt, in battle, and he turned and fled before him, and many were wounded and fell. After subduing Egypt, Antiochus returned in the 143rd year. He went up against Israel and came to Jerusalem with a strong force. He arrogantly entered the sanctuary and took the golden altar, the lampstand for the light, and all of its utensils. He also took the table for the bread of the presence, the cups of drink offerings, and the bowls. I wanted you to see not only what the Maccabees, the Hasmoneans, had to do to get the temple back. I wanted you to see what was happening culturally and how difficult that became. so when we talk about the Maccabees, they are a minute group that didn't fall for these Syrian Greek traditions. But there were a lot of people within the Jewish world at that time, the area at that time, who said, yeah, let's follow them. That sounds better. So the whole experience of them coming back to the temple and fixing it and all of that, we all know about that. We all light our candles. We all do that. But to understand how almost absolutely impossible it was for those small groups of people to get together and win. I mean, we talk about it. We sing songs about it. Unfortunately, Hanukkah songs are not as good as Christmas songs. And so we sing the same ones over and over again, but then it gets blasé, right? But this isn't. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't be here. So that's what I wanted to share with you from the whole thing. So now, let's pass these out. You don't have to collect those. I thought people might enjoy having them.
While we were passing it out, it just occurred to me, because like in our
Thank you.
Talmud class, where we were just studying part of the Talmud that talks about that Jews should be studying Torah and not fighting, and yet the lesson from Hanukkah is if we didn't fight, then we wouldn't be Jews anymore.
That's true. But you're studying what? And what did we just say about Talmud and the rabbis in the Talmud?
God, like all they
That's the wars that we have had to fight are not what the rabbis in the Talmud were most interested in. And if you want to just take a hop into present life, you can see with what happens in Israel, where some of the people who are Haredim, ultra-Orthodox Jews, they think that they're doing a favor to the country if they stay in their schools and learn, right? But many other people in Israel whose kids are going off to war are really not very gracious about that offer, because that leaves the other people safe. But they think that they are doing something very religiously significant. And what you have just been studying is now you can put it together and see what the rabbis of the Talmud, who are fabulous in many ways. I mean, you and I have looked at a number of different texts, and they're very interesting. So I'm not denigrating that at all. But we obviously have both things happening. And Talmud prefers the religious stuff. Yes?
But we are not a nation, not a warrior. We are a nation of rabbis, teachers, doctors. We are philosophers. We're not warrior. In our whole history, I think we had 4 warriors. It was David. I don't remember. Who else was there? David, Judah the Maccabee, I think Avner ben Ner, and one more.
Okay. So I think that as we go through history, we learn that we must be both. So, well, yes. So, and in the Torah, there's certainly enough of the times that we had to fight. We don't, in modern Judaism, we don't look, or growing Judaism throughout the ages, we have tried to look harder about learning, about doing acts of loving kindness, about the kinds of things that you all said. But we kind of need both, don't we? So, did you want to say something, Cecil?
Speaking about the Haredim and the problem in Israel.
Turn toward them
I
and talk
am.
loudly.
I'm trying to, Rabbi.
Okay.
Just at my age, it's a little difficult. So I have to take a wide turn here. Okay, okay. I'll speak very slowly. Just don't fall asleep on me,
Not
okay?
that slowly.
The problem with the Haredim in Israel is really very, very serious now. It all started back in 1948 when the population of Israel was smaller and the Haredim were a very small section. And Ben-Gurion, the old political wizard, made an agreement that the Haredim did not have to serve in the armed forces. And for generations, that happened. Well, yes, yes. And now, the Haredim are over 400,000 or whatever, great numbers. Israel is at war. Israel needs soldiers, and they are the untouchables. And that, it's not fair.
Well, because it was a war. Okay. So this material that I have passed out to you so far, I think this is pretty fun. I have to say so myself. So I brought you a little bit of what was then done in the book of Maccabees. And then we're going to go on to a couple of other texts. So we've already talked about the cleansing of the sanctuary and removing the defiled stones and doing the burnt offerings and all of that. So let's turn to the second page here at the bottom. So early in the morning on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is called the month Kislev, in the 148th year, they rose up and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings which they had made. At the very season and on the very day that the Gentiles had profaned it, it was dedicated with songs and harps and cymbals. Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the God of heaven, who had given them good success. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days and offered burnt offerings with gladness and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise. They also decked the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold and with shields, and the gates and the chambers they renewed, and hanged doors upon them. There was great joy among the people, for the disgrace of the Syrian Greeks was put away. So we're still in the book of Maccabees. We're still in the book of Maccabees. But this last paragraph, what was it about? Dedication. Who are they thanking? God. So what we see here is another kind of strange thing. Obviously, we don't have offerings in the temple any longer. But they're pretty specific about what they used musical instruments and things like that to dance and to rejoice in the giving back of the temple. But we don't, along with the 8 candles and the shamash, and what we do and the blessings that we say, we don't have that as part of the needed aspect of Hanukkah. It always has been curious to me why they didn't say, because Yom Kippur, after Yom Kippur, you know what the tradition is? Eat. Besides eat, they would have these, what's it called, Sadie, where the Sadie Hawkins Day, in synagogue communities all over the Jewish world. They don't do it very much anymore, but there used to be a dance right after Yom Kippur. And after Yom Kippur, all the young people or all whoever wanted to do would show up at the dance, and it would be celebration that comes right after Yom Kippur. And that's what shows up in rabbinic literature. So I've always wondered why, with what we already have for Hanukkah, that wasn't also something that was set down, that we're supposed to do. We have Hanukkah parties, but we don't know that in the earliest texts of Hanukkah, we really see the fact that these people didn't just rekindle things, they embraced everything with great joy. So this year, everybody, after you light your Hanukkah, do a little dance. Doesn't have to be much of one, but it's kind of nice to remember what they had.
We had it here for the first 25 years of our existence.
The Yom Kippur.
The annual Hanukkah, the annual dance.
Oh, that's lovely. Oh, that's great. That wasn't the Yom Kippur one, that was a Hanukkah one?
I just noticed something a little weird, especially because Book of Esther is also, I guess, not included in the Torah. But
Oh, yes, it is.
oh, I thought it was like the Book of Esther, Book of Ruth. Okay, but anyway.
But it's in the Tanakh. Hanukkah didn't even make it into the Tanakh.
Oh, okay.
That's the problem. We have Jonah, we have Esther.
I didn't even get to what I was saying. So there's this thing that it says at the very season, on the very day that the Gentiles had profaned it, it's the same as Purim, where the day that Haman had declared the Jews to be killed, that's the day he was killed. So I thought it was kind of similar in the way that they tell the story that, instead of this, instead of that.
This instead of that. Okay. I have to think about that a little bit. So you'll talk to me after. Yeah. So,
I'm sorry.
it's okay. No, I mean, but it's really interesting about Esther, right? These are things that are pretty much equivalent in time, and Esther made it in. But this one didn't. So I know you were talking about it's not in Torah, right? Right. Okay. So now we have, just for you to have, go down to the bottom of 2 Maccabees. Do you see that? Okay. They celebrated it for 8 days with rejoicing in the manner of the Feast of Booths, Sukkot, remembering how not long before, during the Feast of Booths, they had been wandering in the mountains and caves like wild animals. That's exactly what happened. People had to flee because of what Antiochus was beginning. The destruction of the temple goes a little bit later, but people are having to run away from their homes and hide, literally, in the mountains. So, therefore, bearing ivy-wreathed wands and beautiful branches and also fronds of palm. So how did they make the reestablishment of the temple look? What does it look like? It looks like Sukkot. They offered hymns of thanksgiving to purifying the holy space, and they decreed by public ordinance and vote that the whole nation of Jews should observe these days every year. So, now we have Philo of Alexandria. Have you heard of Philo of Alexandria? No. Uh-oh, I'm running out of time. So Philo of Alexandria wrote all about the Jewish wars and what was going on with the Jewish people. Philo Alexandria was in Egypt. So Philo of Alexandria was a thriving Jewish community. He wrote literally books and books and books about Jewish things that were happening with the Jewish people. However, he omitted any mention of Hanukkah. Had the holiday fallen into disuse during those turbulent times that he was now writing about? Or more likely, had it not taken hold in Egypt, despite the exhortations of 2 Maccabees? Or was the omission a result of political concerns or personal religious leanings? Nobody knows. But since he wrote at a time that he should have been talking about Hanukkah, something was off. Now, I don't think it was because he was in Alexandria, because Jews communicated all over that area very well. And there were numbers of academies of learning in Alexandria. So I think it's got to be something else, but nobody ever found out about it. So if you ever come across a book written by Philo of Alexandria, it's very interesting historically, but this is missing. Okay, so now there are several others that talk about the revival of the customs, and I'm gonna switch that. I'm gonna do that. So, but what I want to go back to, I just gave this to you so that you could take a look on your own, since all of this comes from the Book of Maccabees and other texts. But what I want to do right now is I want to talk to you about a Talmudic aspect of this as we get ready to go. So, this is what it says in the Talmud about Hanukkah. The sages taught in a Baraita. I told you what a Baraita is, but nobody ever remembers, including students who are studying. What? It's a writing. I'm not asking for jump-ins, but it's a writing that came from a text that was written in a Jewish text. However, it is no longer linked to a particular book that it came from. But when they found the snippets of these things, they added them into what was written in the Talmud. And so the rabbis who are talking in the Talmud will say, and we heard in a Baraita, meaning some information that came to us on its own, not part of a book. Does that make sense to you? Okay, so Beit Sham, here's the thing. I'm reading from nowhere that you have. The basic mitzvah of Hanukkah, this is what they wrote in the Talmud, is to each day have a light kindled by a person who's the head of the household for himself and his household. And those who are even more meticulous in the performance of the mitzvah kindle a light for each and every one in the household. And the even more religious people adjust the numbers of lights daily. That's the first thing it says in the Talmud about lighting a Chanukiah. So, you may heard of this. The house of Shammai and the house of Hillel disagreed about that adjustment. They said, because what I just read to you has no bearing on how we light a Hanukkah at all, right? Just light any candle you want to, light them all if you want to, get another Hanukkah if you want to, but Hillel and Shammai thought that that wasn't okay. But what did they do? Did they agree or disagree? They disagreed as to the nature of that adjustment. Beit Shammai says, and I know that many of you know this, on the first day, one kindles 8 lights, and from there on gradually decreases the number of lights until on the last day of Hanukkah he kindles 1 light. That was Beit Shammai. Beit Hillel said, heck no. On the first day, one kindles 1 light, and from there on gradually increases the numbers of lights until on the last day he kindles 8 lights. So, before we go, and I'll take 3 more minutes, obviously Hillel won. And we light with the shamash 1 candle on the first night, 2 candles on the second night, and so on. How do we do it? Let's say we're standing like this, right? This is first night. How do we set up the candles on the second night? So we light, we place from right to left. Place from right to left and light from left to right. Because what Hillel said is the day this day that you're celebrating should get the most attention, right? So you put them in and then you light that one first. But what do you make of what Shammai had to say? What Shammai said, light them all and then narrow them down? So why does that make sense, Susie? So Shammai, well, in the Talmud, we have the oil, and the oil lasts for 8 nights. But what Susie said is that when you have the 8 nights worth of oil, it gets less and less and less and less and less. So Shammai had it right. But, pardon? They didn't know it was going to last those 8 nights, but we know what they knew, or at least what they decided in the Talmud. So that's why Shammai might have made that decision, because he was much later than actually the restoration of that temple as well. So why did Hillel end up with this?
Because Hillel went to the meaning. And the meaning is you increase the holiday, you don't decrease the holiday. And that's why he went the way he went.
Thank you. That is pretty much it. Shammai was going by the reality. But what happens then is when you get to the 8th night, it's kind of like, eh. And Hillel was looking for a growth of the sense of beauty and completion and the idea of how fortunate we are. And so he won, but he probably would have won anyway because Hillel basically wins all the time. Yes. And then we are going to say good afternoon.
Okay, that first thing about everyone in the family lighting the candles explains why my son, who is a Chabadnik, they have a Hanukkah for everyone in the house, regardless of age. So even if there's a baby in the house, so you imagine by the 8th night, and you have 11 kids, you have 13 Hanukkahs. That is a tremendous amount of lights going, and frankly, I thought it was dangerous.
I have a Hanukkah collection, so we pretty much in our family do the same thing. Everybody has their own to light, but it's just, I think you're seeing it because that was what was written in. Yeah, so I hope that you have enjoyed the flow of learning about Hanukkah and a little bit more depth. I would hope that you would take home the material from Maccabees and the other materials so that you can see just how important the books of Maccabees are and the things that came after it. And happy Hanukkah coming up. I'll see you at the beginning of the new year. Oh, we have next week? It's a good thing I said that. So, okay. See you next week. So, what is it? Yeah.
Okay, so what I was trying to say is, it's similar, what the point that I was making is, it seems a little bit dry, like a theme that the Talmud did in their teachings about different holidays.
I have to get going.
I spoke with him. I get to see you guys at the Viva with all these microphones attached to hearing aids.
But the thing is, if, let's say you're not holding it, I'm holding it, and you walk out of the room and you want to say something, you're going to speak louder so people hear. So I will, it'll pick it up.
Yeah.
Because if you walk outside, you're going to speak louder anyway.
Bye, thank you.
She stepped on you right on all the floors.
Corner that big too. So.
Okay. I've got to walk. I have to meet somebody for